Good evening, viewers, and welcome again to Discovering Truth. And I am Pastor Forbes from the Gateway, from Abiding Word Ministries in the Gambia. Well, this is Holy Week. This is a week that leads to Good Friday, and then Easter Day, and then Easter Monday, and it was preceded by Sunday a few days ago, Palm Sunday, or the the Triumphant Sunday. And so I want to journey with us in the story, but really I want to start from the beginning of time to now, and just to give us a brief bird's eye view of the story of the resurrection and the reality of it, and the joy also of it for each one of us. Also, I like to extend an open invitation to everybody. You know, every Easter we have a conference, a seminar in our church. It starts this Thursday, the 29th, that's 2 days' time, and it runs through Friday and Saturday at 6:30 each evening. And then on Sunday morning, of course, we have our Easter service. We have a great service. All kinds of wonderful things will be happening, and it's an open invitation for you all. And I'm sure somewhere along the line this weekend, you will taste the nanburu, the traditional Easter Gambia meal, drink that's unique to us. And I love it because it comes in all shapes, all shades, and you know, it's just interesting how we crisscross from house to house, and receiving, giving, and eating and tasting. And we are just grateful to God for that. And that spirit should never cease in our country. And so we want to invite you to the Gateway, to Abiding Word Ministries this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 6:30 in the evening. Our conference theme this year is Resurrection Spirit and Resurrection Power. Resurrection Spirit and Resurrection Power. And then on Sunday morning, of course, at 9 o'clock, we'll have the great grand finale. So let me start with this story. I'll speak just as I understand the story, and I hope it will be a blessing to you. We all know that God created the world, created from the beginning, where there was darkness. God spoke light, and God systematically brought the earth into an orderly system. And from speaking light and separating light from darkness, and calling day and night, and creating the firmament, separating heavens from the earth, the sea from the land, creating boundaries for each one. God proceeded to create the planets, or the three ones that we know that relate to us: the earth, the sun, and the moon, and the stars. And so when it's daytime, we know it's because the sun is shining, as it were, and when it's nighttime, it's the moon, as it were. But actually, it's the earth rotating and also spinning on its axis. They will teach us that in geography. And then God created vegetation, plant life. And then God created animal life. And then God created us, mankind, in his image and after his likeness, giving us a free moral will, giving us a guiding conscience, and giving us the power of choice, and not limiting us to instincts as animals. Even though sometimes, unfortunately, mankind can lower himself or herself to the point where we are wondering whether we are really humans or animals, you know. And but that was God's purpose. And everything that God had created on the earth prior to his making and forming this being called Adam, and breathing his breath into the nostrils of the being for the being to come alive, known as man, and then removing a like companion to him, not an animal, not a tree, not a garden, but a being like the man, albeit different in gender and sexuality. He brought them together, and he made them, for lack of a better phrase, vice regents on the earth. He made them caretakers of the earth. He made them custodians of everything he had created, and gave mankind the authority. So mankind had the power to name animals, to organize the garden, to till it, to keep it, and also to continue the human race by procreating from a position of love and not brutality, not objectification, not violating anybody, just from love. That was the atmosphere. So the first children born on the earth were three: Cain, Abel, and later their brother called Seth. And they were born to the first parents, Adam and his wife, later known as Eve. Maybe you ought to also know that the first being, Adam, was not created given a father and a mother, neither was Eve given a father and a mother. So the almightiness of God, his omniscience, his omnipotence is such that he could have literally created us one by one till we are 7 billion. But he set a pattern, and all through the first book of the Bible, Genesis, you see patterns, you see first principles, you see original intent in there, and everything branches out from there, but finding its root and its meaning, its significance, and its power and authority from the first principles created in the Garden of Eden in Genesis, the first book of the Bible, and chapter 1 and also chapter 2. Now, when God created this being, Adam, and then gave the wife, Adam said, "This is now bone of my bone." She's not an animal. She's not a monkey. She's not a tree. She's not a train station. She's not a car. She is like me because she was brought from me. And two of us are going to become one flesh. And in that becoming one flesh, we'll become parents. We will be vulnerable. We will not be ashamed of one another. Neither will we be ashamed in the sight of God. And so Adam and Eve had communion. The word is fellowship. They had some kind of divine fraternization with God, and they just fellowshiped in their purity, in their perfection. But God had cautioned them and warned them. In the Bible, in that same Genesis, in the 2nd chapter, God had said to them, everything that is in this garden is for you. You can touch everything except two. There are two trees in this garden. One is called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, not good from evil. So if you take of it, you will participate in both without the ability to discriminate from. From and are not the same. From is a discriminating word. Good from evil. Good and evil is an inclusive word, or a conclusive conjunction, as they'll say in English. So the second tree was the tree of life. And God so ordered the creation that if you partook of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which you shouldn't have, and then you obviously curiously continued and proceeded to partake of the tree of life, then because they had sinned by partaking in the tree of the knowledge concerning good and evil, they would have now eaten of the tree of the good of life and continued in that situation forever. And that is why, if you're familiar with the Bible, when Cain, the first son of that family, murdered his brother Abel, God put a flaming sword, a sword that had fire coming out of it, right in the middle of the garden, protecting the tree from Cain, so that in his fallen state, he will not go and eternally condemn himself or damn himself by partaking of that tree. What's the principle behind this? When God tells you to do something, do it. When he tells you not to do something, abstain from it. But we are told that the serpent was more crafty than all the animals, and he came and he said to the woman, has God really said that you should not touch this tree? God knows that if you touch of this tree and eat of its fruit, you will be like him, and he doesn't want you to be like him. And now we know, with the benefit of hindsight, that anybody who comes to sweet talk you like that about your boss, about your family, your husband, your wife, your children, about your investment, you have to really take a second look at them. And anybody who tells you something is going to be good for you and is so good, but they are not partaking of it themselves, you have to think twice. If it's so good, why would you tell me? It's like how you see these silly messages that you see on the internet that somebody wants your bank account to give you $27 million. Nobody does that. Because if you know there's $27 million and I don't know, why don't you keep it? Why do you want to give it to me? Automatically, you arouse my suspicion because you want my account to do something. So we expected that first couple to be able to say no, but the Bible tells us on the contrary 3 things. That when the woman saw that this fruit was pleasing to the eye and it was desirous for her, and it possibly, in the words of the serpent, might make one wise, she grabbed it and took of it. And when she partook of it, she turned to her husband and gave the husband Adam, and he partook, and something changed for them, which is the something that necessitated Jesus Christ to come till we get to this Easter day on Sunday. So I want to just take my time and tell the story so you understand it as much as I can do that. And so immediately they did that, their innocence, their purity was destroyed. They could not decipher evil from good. So the same God that used to call them and fellowship with them and speak with them, when he called them, they ran away. The day before, they had not run away. 2 days before, they had not run away. And so in the Bible, God said, Adam, where are you? Where are you doesn't mean that God, who is omniscient and omnipotent and ever-present, doesn't know where we are. Where you are is more of an appointment type of question. We have a rendezvous. We meet at 6 o'clock every evening. We pray at 12 noon. How come you are not where you are supposed to be? That means something has happened. Somebody has supplanted my truth for their lie in your life, and the pathway you were taking that was giving you peace, somebody has bumped you off it, and you are in trouble. And this was Adam's response to God's question. The first question that God ever asked man, and maybe it's a question you also must be answering this evening, where are you? It's not a topographical question. It's not a geographical question. Where are you? In your mind, in your thinking, where are you? Are you in bitterness? Are you in deceptive joy? Are you in a recluse position? Are you in criminality? Are you in lust? Are you in thievery? Are you in resignation? Are you in escapism? Where are you? And this is Adam's answer. We heard your voice. So even in a state of sin and rebellion, we hear God's voice. There's a verse of the Bible that says, when you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts, as in the days when the people of old did, because you will get into trouble. You stand even the possibility of blocking yourself into coming into the blessing and the fullness and the grace and the rest of God. So you don't harden your heart when God calls upon you. But their answer was, we heard your voice in the garden, and we saw that we were naked, and we became afraid, and we hid ourselves from you. 3 things happened when they sinned. Apart from their spiritual separation from God, which is what sin does, there was a reality of nakedness, there was fear into their life suddenly, and there was hiding. A day before, they were not afraid. A day before, they were not hiding. A day before, they had no idea they were naked. As a matter of fact, in the second chapter of Genesis, the very last verse, Genesis chapter 2, verse 25, beautifully puts it this way, and the man and his wife were naked, but they were not ashamed, because the blessing, the glory of God covered them in their innocence. But somebody came and opened their eyes as he thought, and they found themselves running, hiding, and using fig leaves to cover themselves. And the person who told them that had disappeared. And so when God asked that, how come you are hiding? Have you done what I told you not to do? Then Adam said, it's the woman that you brought to me. And God asked the woman, what have you done? And the woman said, it's the serpent that beguiled me. The English word is, he beguiled, he lied to me, he tricked me. And so God gave out some judgments. One was that the man would toil and sweat for his life. 2 was that the woman's desire would be unto her husband. And 3rd was that the serpent, however he operated, we do not know, but the judgment and the curse upon the serpent was that from that time he would go upon his belly and eat dust for the rest of his life. So the snakes and the serpents we see are not a big bang and a black hole. It's a judgment of God. But then inside that judgment, God made a statement. He said, I will put enmity, I will put hatred between you and the woman, not the man. And then God said, between your seed, your offspring, and the woman's seed. Now, if you want to be grammatically correct, and if you want to be morphologically correct, you'll say that, God, you made a mistake. It's not the woman that has a seed. The woman carries the seed, incubates it, gestates it, and produces a baby after 40 weeks. So God, you should have said the seed of the man. But you see, God knew what he was going to do. He said the seed of the woman. I'm going to put enmity, Satan, between your seed and the seed of the woman. Which means that Satan has seed, demonic seed. And God said that you will bruise his heel, but he will crush your head. So that is what we call a prophecy. So that was going to happen. That was going to happen. Now, as they continued, Adam and Eve gave birth to Cain and Abel, and that attitude of fear, hiding, and nakedness continued. They were the only family on the earth in the Garden of Eden. They were not one of two families, so there was no family rivalry between family A and family B. But somehow there was jealousy between the brothers, and Cain killed Abel. So murder happened. And the human nature, which we call original sin, or I like to call it a congenital defect, it's like in the human DNA, and only the blood of Jesus could take it out, are continued. But right there in the garden, God had said the recipe and the remedy to help you in this your sense of fear, sense of hiding and shame is going to be blood. I'm going to require blood as an atoning sacrifice, blood as the one that will cover. So God provided coats of skin, so he must have killed one of the animals and covered them in the skin. And that again became a first principle, that wherever there is sin, wherever there is transgression, the remedy was blood. Something had to die to assuage the holy demands of a righteous God and the righteous demands of a holy God. It was not going to be fruits, it was not going to be vegetables, it was not going to be anything. It had to be the shedding of blood. And so from Adam and Eve all the way through Noah, we jump all the way to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, and the Hebrew people, and all the way to Prophet Samuel, and all the way to Saul, and Solomon, and David. As it all went through, if you followed the thread, any time the people had either a family tragedy or a national calamity or a tribal calamity, and they transgressed the laws of God which he gave them through the hands of Musa, there had to be a sacrifice. A lamb had to be slaughtered, a sheep had to die, blood had to be given to temporarily, and that's the word, to atone. So every year it had to be done. And the methodology was that once a year, the priest, the big priest, in the Bible is called the high priest, from a particular tribe, where everyone in that tribe was a priest. The high priest would bring the entire nation, and they would kill a lamb that was supposed to take the sins of the people until the next year. And that high priest, he was not doing it just for the people, he was also doing it for himself, because both he and all the inhabitants were all sinners. But the prophecy that the seed of the woman was going to come was going to come. So we fast track all the way into when Angel Gabriel, Gabu, came and spoke to the Virgin Mary and told her that God has favored you highly amongst women, and you are the one chosen to bring forth the Savior, the Messiah, to bring forth that seed that is going to bruise the head of the serpent. And of course, Mary was shocked because she was a virgin. She was chaste. She had not known a man. Her fiancé, Joseph, was an upright man, and he had even decided that after her telling him that, she was pregnant and it wasn't him. As a gentleman, he said he wasn't going to do any family disgrace. He wasn't going to do any DNA testing. He was just going to put her aside quietly. And then God sent the angel to speak to him and said, look, this is way beyond you. This is the plan. The plan is for a baby to be born through the right channel always, which is the womb of the baby's mother. But the baby is not going to have the genes of a human father, because if the baby has the genes of the human father, the sin nature from Adam that fell upon Cain, Abel, Seth, Moses, David, everybody, Elijah, Elisha, Ruth, Obed, all the people that we know, all the kings, it would have just continued. It would have just continued. It would have just continued. And so there had to be divine wisdom that pregnancy will take place, conception will occur, a baby will be born, but he will not have the human genome, the 46 from a father, earthly father, and a mother. You say, well, how did that happen? I'm so glad I'm not God, and aren't you glad you are not God? But it did happen. We cannot negate it. We can say anything we like, but it did happen. It's a historical fact. It's a real fact. Until today, it is a real fact. Have you ever wondered why nobody goes around saying, when people die, you either, at least in English, I hear people say the late, or they say of blessed memory. Sometimes people say, may her soul rest in peace. May his soul rest in peace. People say, in my language, in Creole, they say, may God give and colgron usai lidom, and not call his name for bad. Or sometimes they say, may mercy, grace, and peace be upon him. None of those things can be said to Jesus Christ, because he is not late. He's not deceased. He is alive. And that is the reality of the resurrection that we hit this coming Sunday as it is celebrated year after year. But let's go through the story. So Mary brought forth this baby, Jesus Christ, and he grew up. And he was presented to God as was expected. When he was 12 years of old, he confounded the priests, and they knew that there was something unique about this boy. When he was 30, he went to be baptized by Yahweh, John the Baptist, and his baptism had 3 unique presentations. One, the people there just saw like the heavens parting, and there was a voice from the heavens. Ladies and gentlemen, if you think thunder is loud, can you imagine the voice from the heavens? And suddenly a bird was coming from out of the heavens, way beyond the clouds, and alighted upon Jesus Christ. It is the same way Jesus Christ sat upon a donkey that had never been ridden. The donkey had not been broken. The donkey was wild, and you would have expected, as Jesus came upon that donkey, the donkey will throw him. But it's the personality. It's who he was. The same way his life could be upon a donkey, and the donkey was comfortable and rode with him into Jerusalem, the same way a dove, which is a very sensitive bird, could alight upon him and not run away. And the Father spoke from heaven and said, this is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased. Hear ye him. It is not Moses anymore. It is not Elijah. He is the real one. And after his baptism, the Spirit of God took him into the wilderness. He fasted for 40 days and 40 nights and was tempted by Satan. And in the 3 areas of temptation, he did not succumb because of who he was. That's why he is Jesus Christ, Emmanuel, God with us. And so the greatest thing that happened was that God used a method that the enemy knew, but beat him in that method, because as far as humanity knew, every child born of a woman has original sin. Every child born of a woman has sin. And you see it today. You don't have to teach a 3-year-old to have a temper tantrum. You don't have to teach a 4-year-old to lie or to be vicious in their character. It's just there. But he did not have that. Yet he came through the right channel. And when he started his ministry, it was evident. He was doing things that could only be done by God. Even this Palm Sunday story, if you are familiar with it, when he sent his disciples and he told them, go into the village over against you. When you reach that village, you're going to find a donkey and a young donkey by it. The young donkey is tied. Nobody has ever ridden him. Nobody has ever sat upon him. He's never done any job. Loose him and bring him to me. And when they ask you, what are you doing? This is what you must answer. The Lord has need. That word Lord in Greek is kurios, K-U-R-I-O-U-S, meaning owner, master. So even the people who thought they owned the donkey knew that there was a master over them. 2/3 of the New Testament of the Bible is written by a man called Paul, who was called Saul before, who persecuted the way of Jesus. But a light, just a light, hit him on one of his trips to Damascus, and he fell down, and he heard the voice calling him by his name, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? And he said, who are you, Lord? This same Jesus went through this whole week, had a meal with his disciples, washed their feet in servant leadership, prayed for them, went to the cross for them, died on the 3rd day for them and for us, and arose on Easter Day. And that same day that he arose, he was seen by all kinds of people. Historical fact and evidence attest to it. Because the Romans had thought that this man that really harassed their life must be given capital punishment, must be given treason. So everything about his story followed the prophetic line. And we cannot come to that one point and suddenly he ran away from the cross, or it was made to appear that no, they wanted him, they got him because that was the plan. But right there on the cross, he was saving one of the 2 thieves as he could save you and I. And the joy of the resurrection was when the women went to his tomb, he wasn't there. But rather he started appearing to people, speaking to them, and released the Spirit of God as God's presence in our hearts for all who open their hearts to accept him for the reality of his goodness in their lives. That is the Easter story. And so as we journey into Good Friday, into Sunday, that's the story. That is why it's not a bad Friday. It's a victorious Friday. It's a great Friday. Yes, they beat him. Yes, they scourged him. Yes, there was blood. But that blood was shed because that was the principle. If man is going to be forgiven of their sins, blood must be shed. And he finally, and I repeat, he was the final sacrifice of God for humanity. And through him, all is open for you and I. But you must make that decision to accept him in your life so he can lead you and guide you all the way. More of this will be shared with us this weekend at Abiding Word Ministries at the Gateway. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, join us 6:30 in the evening. Sunday morning, we have a great Easter service at 9 in the morning. Happy Easter to you all. I know you'll all enjoy some Nanburu. I'm looking forward to it myself. Go easy on it. And as we say, Ndewenati, happy Easter to us all, to the entire nation. Jesus Christ is alive. Jesus is Lord. And may his grace and power be over our nation. Have a good evening until we come your way by the grace of God next week. God bless us all and happy resurrection.